It's 5:30 and call to order this planning and zoning commission meeting of Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. Present are John, Peter, Charles, myself, Elaine, Matthew, Angela, and Todd, so all the commissioners. From staff, we have Ron, Holly, Piper, Lance.
And John Strandberg is remote.
Thank you, and John. And we also have our town council liaison, Dan, right. So our first item of order tonight is approval of the minutes of January 25th, 2024. We have a motion.
I'll move. Yeah, I'll move to approve the minutes of January 25th, 2024. As written.
Is there a second?
Todd second.
Todd can second.
Who did you hear first?
Todd.
Okay.
Great, Todd. Are there any comments or discussion about the minutes? No, all in favor? Yes, that's unanimous. The meetings are approved. Ron, are there any staff announcements?
No, there are not. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on non-agenda items?
At this time, we do not seem to have any public.
Okay. Let me know if anyone that changes. All right, so now our next thing is in our work session, we have a comprehensive plan update from John Strandberg. Who's on Zoom?
Hey, let's see if I can get my video going here. Okay. Hi, everyone.
John?
So I've been a little under the weather, so I'm at home tonight. I didn't want to bring it into the office.
Thank you.
But at any rate, yeah, they all seem pretty appreciative of that.
COVID has made all of us feel that way.
So, as you know from our last meeting, we're working on getting the comprehensive plan going, and the RFP, I incorporated all your updates into it, and it went to legal for review. And while it was there, I spoke with our new sustainability and grant administrator, Darren Graber. Actually, Ron caught it and sent it off to me. And after speaking with him, we've decided to go for a grant to which will bring our value of our RFP almost double it, which will be extremely valuable down the road. We can get a much better product and much more thorough and comprehensive plan. So we were kind of excited about that. So we pulled it out of the attorney's queue, and we're starting the application process. The only downside of this is it might delay the review or the start of the project a couple months, but we feel that the end product we'll get out of this will be well worth it in the long run. So I will keep you informed of any updates in every meeting we have. So any questions on this so far?
Yes, so why can't it be two track? That is, why can't the attorneys be looking at it while you do the grant application?
So we did, during the grant application in the RFP, you actually put what the value of this is in. So we can't do that without knowing what we have. So let's say we currently have 185,000 earmarked for this. This will bring it up to 315,000, so an additional 150,000. So what you end up getting is, if you produce it and put it out with an RFP saying, oh, we have this, we would have to completely update everything if we come up with an RFP that an applicant for that, if that makes sense.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks for the.
So I just got a notice that my video is stopped. Are you guys still able to see me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Fine, on our end.
Question.
So yeah.
Peter.
Added 150,000. What are you getting? What are you doing with that? And what is, and to Angela's question, what is being added to the comprehensive plan in that bonus?
Sure. So the big thing we're going to get is we're going to look at a lot of the resources that are in through the town, meaning, well, the water systems. Where are we getting water? Where are we going in the future with that? How are we going to maintain the sewer system, which we obviously know there's something that has to be done with that. That'll get thrown out and put in. It goes into much more detail as to, so there are certain requirements the state requires for these grants, and this is part of that. It goes into a lot more detail as to how you release this to the community and what type of community members you get back, because you really want every demographic to be identified. You get a much cleaner product as well. So there's some really big advantages for it. We just started digging into it today, so I'm not completely up to date on that, or not up to date, but up to speed on what we're going to get. But it's pretty extensive.
Thank you.
Other questions for John about this?
I just have a
Yes.
comment. I'm hoping we can do more demographics or surveys if we have extra funds than having to do some very simplistic thing.
Absolutely. That is one of the direct requirements for the grants.
Perfect. So John, you are also our second work session item, which is update on commercial vitality horizontal zoning inventory report.
Yes. Isn't that a mouthful? So this is an annual thing, and I'm going to refer to this as the vitality setback, how it's referred to in the code for this little presentation here. You have the packet. Do you want me to pull the report up for you?
Whatever you want to do in your presentation, we have the packet.
Okay. I'm not going to do it then, just so you can see my lovely face tonight. So this is the annual update for the vitality setback, which is along Colorado Avenue Commercial Core area between Aspen Street at the west and Alder Street on the east. The purpose of this is to preserve the historic character of Telluride's Main Street, which is the Colorado Ave area, as a retail corridor for dining, shopping, and entertainment. The vitality setback code prohibits certain non-retail commercial uses on the ground floor along the street frontages and limits it to no more than 625 lineal feet. Currently, there is a total of 2,950 lineal feet along this corridor on both sides. The 625 feet represents just under 23% of the total. The current non-retail use frontage is 475.5 feet, well below the 625 lineal foot minimum maximum, which is good. It gives us a buffer to work around with. Staff surveyed the area in January and have the following findings since the last survey in 2021. Retail lineal feet is up 2.7%. That's good. The bar restaurant lineal feet is up 1.2%, and theater entertainment feet has remained steady. The most important findings of this are the non-retail lineal feet, which this code was designed to kind of limit, has dropped 0.4%. Doesn't seem like much, but it has dropped. And vacancies have dropped 3.5%, which is the most significant part of that. So we're getting more businesses on the Colorado Avenue corridor, which is great. So back in early February, we sent a letter out reminding the vacant building owners of the vitality setback requirement to help avoid any issues in the future. I do, and Ron do note that there was a gap in reporting in the last 2 years, but we'll continue with annual reporting in the future. Is there any questions on this?
No, I think the vacant building space going down is actually quite significant. Last time we looked at this, a number of us, including myself, had some serious concerns about how much vacant space suddenly there was, because it had gone from 2.6 to 6.6% over in that last gap period. So I'm really happy to see that it's going down again.
Yes, that was a wonderful finding to see.
Other questions for John?
I
Yes.
just think we've been doing this like maybe every other year, so I don't know that you need to do it every year, but we need to keep an eye on it so we can warn people if we ever get close.
Well, it seems actually, if you look back, Kathy, that we did do it every year
Well, there
up
are
until
cameras, yeah.
2019, and then we kind of stopped for a bit. Maybe this was COVID, and so on. So I blame COVID for all irregularities
Yeah.
that occur.
And in the past, I'll also say the planning staff that was working on this had loved having to go outside, walk around and take a tape measure.
January.
No, they were doing it in the fall, so it's a good excuse to get out and spend some time on Main Street, which I think is positive for our staff.
Well,
Oh
I
yeah,
also,
it was enjoyable.
I also appreciated the Main Street business changes list,
Yes.
because it's just helpful because, sometimes you get an impression that everybody's leaving, and actually, no, some of it is musical chairs.
It's always
Mhm.
musical chairs, it seems. Yeah,
Well, but if it's musical chairs off Main Street, then you get the impression that they.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, there are several buildings that actually get finished, I think, that are reflected in here, don't you?
Oh, yeah, Casablanca and Society all got finished in the
Yep,
list
and the,
and
Chase
the
Bank.
Chase Bank.
at the
I mean,
corner,
Chase Bank, you know, that was like a
That-
5-year remodel.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So this was a very helpful format, John, to have the.
Good, good. You can
Business
thank,
judgment.
Director Quarles for that.
Thank you, Ron.
I won't take credit for it.
Really?
Yes,
He's
that was
not
you.
accepting that, but whatever, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments about the report? Yep. Thank you, John. Thanks for your efforts. Hope you feel better. See you next time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving on. We now have public hearing items. Our first one is yet again the Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing Large Scale Preliminary Subdivision. And we continued this part of this project from last time. Summary, consideration of large scale preliminary subdivision with right of way vacation at lot 3, block 1 of the Canyonlands subdivision and 650, 652, and 654 West Colorado Avenue. Legal description of lot 3, block 1 Canyonlands subdivision and lots 31, 32, and 33 Backman Village subdivision. Address 650, 652, and 654 West Colorado Avenue and unassigned address for lot 3, block 1 Canyonlands subdivision. Zone District Accommodations 2, owner Block 23 Housing Corporation in Town of Telluride, applicant Norris Design, staff member Ron. Ron,
Question, are there a couple of recusals?
Because
yes, oh, we have 2 recusals, Charles and Todd. Enjoy,
Yeah.
enjoy. dinner.
For the
And-
record, state your reasons for recusal.
Proximity to the project.
Todd Brown, also proximity.
Thank you.
All right. And unfortunately, you guys, we would love to see you guys back in
We'll be back.
several hours. I'll be in the green room. Come visit.
She probably will. Francis probably will.
Ron, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Planning and Zoning Commission, this was continued from our last meeting in January. You did act on the request for the PUD approval, preliminary PUD that was requested by or for the same area. The Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing. The second piece of the application was the preliminary subdivision that was requested along with the PUD. You're very familiar with the land that's the subject of this application. It includes the Canyonlands parcel and 3 of the Bachman Village lots. Just to remind you, this area is located within the Accommodations 2 zoning district. Just taking a look at the map, you can kind of determine how this zoning district differs from some of the more traditional zoning in the town. You don't see the grid pattern. You see larger buildings, a little bit more massing, and some mixed uses that aren't typical of some of the other residential zoning. Just to remind you of the PUD that was approved at your last meeting, there were variations that were granted with the PUD that included an increase in the site coverage from 40% to a maximum of 60%, an increase in the building heights from 35 feet to a maximum of 40 feet, and a reduction of the minimum lot size from 2,500 square feet to 1,500 square feet. In return, the PUD provided for nearly 30,000 square feet of affordable housing, and it was mixed with apartments and condominium type units as part of the PUD. Free market townhomes were included as a part of the request as well to accomplish or accommodate some of the financing that would be required for the affordable housing. Conditions that were placed on the PUD included reference to the affordable housing that would be provided. We requested and you approved a condition that would require internal access from the condominium units to the off-site parking spaces in the townhome lots. Also on-street parking, recorded easements, street signage, and there was a condition that was placed to reduce the amount of the height over 35 feet on the Canyonlands West lot significantly from what was shown at the meeting, which was again January 25, your last meeting. So the current request is a preliminary, a large-scale preliminary subdivision. Technically, it's a replat. All of the land that's involved within this subdivision has already been platted, beginning with the Bachman Village subdivision. The 3 lots that you're considering as a part of this application include lot 31, 32, and 33 of the Bachman Village. This originally was granted or recorded back in 1979. A lot of the Bachman Village subdivision has been modified since 1979. There have been some adjustments made as far as uses and pattern or the development pattern. However, these 3 lots are still in place as they were originally platted. The other subdivision that is affected by this preliminary subdivision includes Lot 3, Block 1 of the Canyonlands. This was also platted back in 1979. There were 3 lots that were created. 2 of the lots include the market, Clark's Market, and the associated parking on lots 1 and 2. And then lot 3, which was held under private ownership for many years. There were attempts to develop this property, but the land was never actually developed. It was utilized primarily for commercial parking. The owner of the property, the town of Telluride, purchased the property for the purpose of future affordable housing from the then property owner. I think that was about 2 years ago, something like that. So again, this preliminary subdivision is a replat of the existing lots that were created back in 1979, Canyonlands Lot 3, Block 1, and Lot 31, 32, and 33 of Bachman Village. The change that would occur, there's primarily 3 changes that would occur with this preliminary subdivision. One is the vacation of right-of-way along Colorado Avenue at the frontages of both Canyonlands lot and the Bachman Village lot. A total of 2,856 square feet of right-of-way vacation would occur with the subdivision. The other change is to reconfigure the Tower House or the Bachman Village lots, which are referred to as the Tower House lots. Reconfigure those lots, resulting in 1 additional lot from the previous subdivision. The larger lot would accommodate future condominium development, and the 3 smaller lots would accommodate separate townhome units. Parking easements are located on these townhome lots. These are the subject of the condition of the PUD to provide access to the Bachman Village or the subdivision within, or the condominiums within the Bachman Village subdivision. Other easements are identified on the replat. So staff reviewed this application based on criteria in the Land Use Code, section 6-408. The findings, staff's findings with the review included creation of the lot area less than 2,500 square feet, lots 31 RC and 31 RD. Bachman Village are granted with the planned unit development approval. The applicants will work with the town to engineer streetscapes, including on-street parking surfaces consistent with the streetscape standards. The large-scale subdivision is found to be consistent with the subdivision standards found at Article 6, Division 4. We have numerous conditions in the staff memo that.
Can I ask a question as we
Sure.
go along or not?
No, yeah, that's-
Leave it to the end, let him finish. Just remember, make a mark about your question, we'll come
Okay.
back.
We do have numerous conditions as a part of this application that staff is recommending. I guess I would request from the chair and the commissioners if you would prefer me to read these for the record or prefer me not to read them.
I should not read them at this time, and if
Okay.
we've read the memo, if people have concerns about a particular one, we'll discuss it.
Okay. I'll skip to. But we do have a motion in your packet, a suggested motion if you move to approve the application along with the basis for the motion. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Be glad to answer. Oh, we do have, we also have a separate motion for the proposed right-of-way vacation. Based on findings, I'll read those findings. The proposed right-of-way vacation does not deny access to any property owner. Number two, the remaining right-of-way is adequate to serve the public and individuals affected by the vacation. Moreover, the land to be removed from the public right-of-way will be utilized for the substantial public benefit of additional affordable housing for the town of Telluride. And so with that, that concludes the presentation.
All right, Angela.
Yeah, on finding number 2 for the first, for the subdivision. That sounds more like the applicants will work with the town. Sounds more like a condition than it does a finding. So I was just curious about if they're gonna, how are we guaranteeing that they're going to work with the town? Is that something that shows up later in the conditions?
That's based on our work with the applicants at this point. If you prefer that to be a condition, I don't think staff would be opposed to that.
How's everybody else? I mean, we'll get to that. Then, the finding number 1, on the vacation of right-of-way. So these, when it says does not deny access to any property owner. Specifically, what property are you referring to potentially, and does that mean that these are dedicated to this project, right?
No,
Because they
typically,
meet the parking requirement, how are you going to keep public?
are you referring to
Different question.
the second,
Yeah,
or finding?
yeah,
Based on the application, the proposed public improvements that will occur within the right-of-way, our determination that it is adequate and will serve the public, that it's not, that the primary benefit is additional affordable housing, but that the right-of-way is adequate to serve the public affected by the general public as well as the public affected by this request specifically.
My,
Dan, wait a sec. Are you part of the applicant,
no, certainly not.
Town of Telluride?
I am here as a liaison, and I'm just trying to answer Angela's question, or
that's
I give my interpretation of it.
Okay,
Because I interpreted that saying as that area that was vacated would be repurposed for a sidewalk effectively, is my understanding of the change in that area, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron,
That,
please.
well, that and
That's
other,
part of it.
other public
Okay.
improvement.
It's
let's,
mostly
let's let the applicant address this to clarify this issue. Anybody have any other questions for Ron? Yes, Kat?
There were just a few things showing the floodplain, and I don't exactly understand why we're in trouble with FEMA and how we get out of trouble about floodplains violations. And I want to make sure that this subdivision will not increase our nonconformity and our problems with FEMA. And it's very concerning because much of the property is in a floodplain.
Is that correct, Ron?
Some, yeah, the property is affected by the floodplain, but this will, the properties that are of concern with FEMA are on steep slopes. This is a little bit different from that. We're gonna measure as is appropriate, for future development, consistent with the requirements, that are in place because it is in the floodplain. So, I don't know how to answer you other than, other or more specifically than that at this point.
Could you say that again?
So
I don't think I understood, Ron.
we will comply with the FEMA requirements. We will measure.
The new
every-
ones are the current or the old new?
It's Lance McDonald, Town Teller. The determination of how floodplain applies to your development occurs when you propose a building. This note, I think that we're talking about here is that when you do a subdivision plat, you identify that it's in the floodplain. And you show where the floodplain line is. And we are doing that. The property is in the floodplain, and we have to comply with the regulations that are in effect. We are not proposing to do anything that has caused some of these problematic areas. We're not proposing any habitable space below what FEMA may interpret as the base flood elevation. That's what these issues have been in these other situations. Example, Mendota in the floodplain, parking below the habitable floor area. So.
Thanks. I think, did that answer your question, Kathy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's gonna get determined with Hark and building department, but it's a little scary that we're creating a subdivision that has partially done plans, and now we might have to be radically changed.
We have taken a very conservative approach on raising the finished floor elevation 2 feet above the finished floor or the highest adjacent grade. Mendota required 1 foot, but the rules changed since then, so now we're 2 feet above that. So,
That is one of the primary concerns of FEMA is the.
Yeah.
Flood elevation.
mhm.
And I believe that subdivisions need to show snow storage. And I kind of looked in this packet, I didn't go back to an old packet, and I couldn't find where that's shown and how that's going to work.
Are these applicant?
Lance, you part of the applicant?
Yes, I can be part of the applicant and I can answer questions as well.
Ron, and then we'll have.
Okay.
Well, that was, okay, the floodplain one was definitely, I didn't want the town to be in more trouble.
All right.
We,
We have other questions for Ron.
I was gonna ask about the snow storage in terms of compliance.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
there
that-
was
that
a
was
public
done-
comment to that concern.
It was demonstrated on the plan set that was provided with the PUD application.
Yeah, it was a little confusing, just to make a note there because it also overlapped with a lot of ground cover grids and whatnot. So I wasn't sure, so
Let's ask the
we'll ask the
applicant.
applicant.
All right, how about a presentation from the applicant?
I will defer to Lindsay.
Good evening. Yes,
Thank you.
good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks, Lance.
Yep.
Lindsay Newman with Norris Design. with you tonight virtually. Let me just get my presentation pulled up here. So from our team, we also have virtually attending our engineer, Kinley Horn. And we're here tonight to discuss the preliminary subdivision of the Canyonlands and Tower House PUD. Since we were here last in January to discuss this subdivision application, we have updated our submittal to include a few of the items that were discussed, including a parking easement agreement, which includes designation for the maintenance responsibility for the parking spaces that are on the Tower House townhomes lots. And we have also included an updated SIA with cost estimates for updated public improvements, which I will go through with you. So what we're looking at here for the preliminary subdivision plat has not changed. However, we have noted that with a star down here that this multi-use easement on the Tower House site location will be determined following the final HARC approval. So what that means is that we understand that we've received conditions from both HARC and Planning and Zoning to create a north-south pedestrian access through the site, and that will be provided on the final subdivision plans once we have approval from HARC. So we're working through that currently. We have also noted that these parking easements at the exact locations will be determined based on final HARC approval as well. And we have been continuing to work with the Historic Preservation Department on architecture design and site design, and we will be going to HARC in March. And I think that might answer a few of the questions as we move forward as related to site design, but I will continue just with this presentation and then we can come back to some of those if we'd like to discuss them further. So this is a plan showing our proposed public improvements. This was also included in the package. This is just an illustrative version. The public improvements plan has been updated with standards requested by Public Works, including some of the sizes of the valley pans from 2 feet to 3 feet, for example. ADA connectivity, so we have ADA ramps shown across our entrance drive on Colorado Avenue, across Tomboy Drive. We have one on the east side of Tomboy Drive and then another on the southeast corner. And sidewalk, overall sidewalk width. The remaining conditions that we received in our packet will be addressed at final subdivision, and we don't have any concerns with the conditions that were issued. So our next steps, as we move forward, we just wanted to look at the right-of-way vacation request again. So this will be going to Town Council as an ordinance, as mentioned. You do have that as something to vote on tonight. There will be 2 readings of this ordinance, and we just wanted to go through a couple precedent options. We had included a table the last time we met with you, and we thought we would dive a little bit deeper into some of these. So we're looking right here at the Gold Run right-of-way vacation. So the total vacated area of right-of-way is shown in green, and that's 11,326 square feet. The total subdivision area would then become 54,450. So the vacated area as a part of the total right-of-way is quite a large portion of that site. We go to Wilkin Court. We show the green again as our right-of-way vacation, and that there is 12,810 square feet of vacated right-of-way on this site. For comparison, on the top, we have the Canyonlands and Tower House right-of-way vacation combined, and that was, we're currently requesting 2,861 square feet, which is 11% of the vacated right-of-way. That's the total area of our site.
And Lindsay, before
One
you
other,
go back to
Yeah,
that slide real quick,
ahead.
sorry. The ratio, the percentages are reversed in the last column. It's 21% for Gold
oh,
Run,
sorry,
55% for Wilkin Court.
thanks, Lance.
Yep.
And then the last one we wanted to look at was the Telluride School District vacation. And this was of a portion of Galena Avenue, and that's shown in green. And then we've also highlighted in this gold color that the land right here, these are 4 lots that were dedicated to the town for affordable housing with the subdivision, and then land dedicated to the town for a bus stop. So just showing some other examples throughout town.
On this one, there was a comment in one of the public comment letters that said that when I was the planning director, when this when this subdivision
Mhm.
vacation went through, I had recommended a 30-foot setback for the school. There was a couple reasons for that, and I still stand by that, that recommendation. Basically, schools are not subject to HARC review or P and Z review. They're exempt from those. What we did negotiate in this deal was a advisory review by those boards, but they were not a binding type of review. The school right now is 233,000 square feet. And so having a bigger setback might make sense for scale of that development. And to put that into context, I think our maximum floor area on Canyonlands, the two buildings combined, I think is around 21,000, although that's changing with HARC. So yeah, there was a recommendation at that time. That was our bite at the apple, so to speak, by vacating the right of way. And we did put that condition of 30 feet, which really isn't that great considering the size of the building.
I'm sorry, Lindsay, have you concluded your presentation? Should we go to questions or would you like to say more?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is that following this hearing, should we be approved, we would move forward with the final subdivision and final PUD reviews and approval, and also HARC reviews. And that does conclude my presentation. I open it to questions.
Thanks. So I'm going to have some questions and then we'll open it up to Peter, Kathy, and anybody else who wants one. So we did receive public comments that Lance alluded to, and questioning the comparability of the Gold Run, Wilkins Court, and Galena Avenue precedents. And there are a few of those points I'd like some clarification on. So the commentator, the Gorleys pointed out that the Gold Run right-of-way vacation did not affect the actual roadway. Does this right-of-way vacation affect the roadway or not?
I would defer to legal on this, but it's our understanding that the town council, when it determines whether or not to vacate a right-of-way, determines that it is no longer, that portion of the property is no, or right-of-way is no longer needed for right-of-way purposes. Otherwise, they would not vacate it. So in the example of Gold Run and Wilkin Court, those were not developed rights-of-way. The property in front of these properties are not developed as streets or roads or, sidewalks and stuff. So that's but I will defer to Ron. I think his motion indicated some of the findings that council would need to make if they choose to vacate a right of way.
Ron, I think Lance wants you to say something at this point.
Yeah, your conditions that you
Well,
had on the talk about some of
the-
these things.
The findings were based on the fact that the right of way that's vacated will serve a public purpose, that being affordable housing, but will also the area that would remain as right of way will accomplish the public improvements that are necessary for that area.
People can drive up and down.
Yes, drive up and down, walk up and down, landscaping, all of the public improvements associated.
And Public Works has evaluated this, and they do have some future plans for doing improvements in the road, maybe perhaps widening it. These vacations, they've evaluated that with respect to that. But again, this is a council decision as to whether that portion of the right of way is needed for right of way purposes.
Yeah, well, it will be. Obviously, council can do what it wants and they will, but
Yeah.
we need to make a recommendation. So we need to make up our minds about what we think about it.
Yeah.
Yes, Angela.
So, you're saying that the right of way that will remain is sufficient to accomplish some of the traffic implications from the redo of Davis and Pacific as part of the swap plan? Right,
I cannot speak for the town in their review of this right of way vacation.
But it's adequate in terms of the future public improvements that are planned.
anticipated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want as part of the record, because there was a roundabout proposed for Davis and Colorado.
Mhm.
And, certain right turn lane kind of situations, potentially, so that's what I wanted to bring to the board.
Peter.
Lance, you mentioned the 30-foot setback with the school, the large building. That's generally twice residential 15-foot setback. Got that, if I'm understanding, was it
Sure.
from the property line to a near
Yeah.
corner of building, okay. And so by comparison, this is a tenth the size or even less, the size of building.
Yeah, I think if the town had intended to put a setback on this lot, they would have done so at the time of the subdivision. The setbacks in the zone district are as approved by Hart. I think you know that as an architect. In the residential districts, there are setbacks that are pretty prescriptive, average of blocks and so forth. In the accommodation zone, it basically says the building code controls, but it's also Hart's determination.
In this sort of angular, the roads at angle, it kind of makes more sense for that to be the case, which is get a building that you can react to, and it's gonna, the setbacks are gonna vary greatly by the geometry.
Right.
As opposed to a traditional.
Kathy.
Can someone show me the current snow storage on this subdivision plan? Do we have a?
It is
Subdivision plan.
included in your packet. It's.
Yeah, the Grillies also brought this up. They were very concerned about the snow storage,
Yeah.
particularly on the tower house side.
If I can find it, it is included in your packet.
Kathy, it was in the landscaping page, LS 100.
Yeah, I have it here. I can tell you, it's really hard.
Yeah, I could,
To
I found it
determine.
on,
Yeah.
I found it on
So,
Canyonlands. It's
if-
pretty clear there.
Maybe you could point it
If I
out to
may-
us.
Yeah, if you could just,
If I may
just
speak-
with your cursor. Thank you.
I'll have to pull that up. I just wanted to speak to that a little bit because we are working through snow storage with our site plan and architecture design. And so that revised snow storage will be brought to Hark in March. So that's something that is still that we're aware of.
So it's still in process, is that what we're,
Well, with the architecture design, you know, things are changing, so we'll make sure that we bring that to Hark in March for
undefined?
updates. But I can show you where it was left in just a minute. I have to pull it up. It wasn't part of our presentation tonight.
While we wait, Elena, are you going through a list that's on your list?
I have a bunch of questions. But
Yeah.
you can.
Well, but if it corresponds to questions we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, John.
You might have to look up this as well, but I had some trouble with my scale and my PDF tool, and I don't know if it was because the PDFs that were provided were scaled differently.
Yeah.
So I was having a hard time trying to measure from the corner of the building to the roadway. Kind of along the thought of the public comment with the 30 feet, I just kind of wanted to see what other buildings in the area were from the distance to the road. And so I'm just curious on both sides, Canyonlands as well as Tower House, what is the distance from the closest point of the building to the traveled roadway? As shown, I understand that.
Well, there's no buildings proposed in the subdivision. This is not a building review. This is a land division or land aggregation review.
Not a
Understood.
site review.
Yeah, it's not a site review of the buildings.
But I guess the reason the question I feel like is important because we're moving the right of way essentially. We're shifting it forward and we're pushing the ability to have the building closer to the street. And so when we're talking about context of the neighborhood, I'm interested to know how it fits within the surrounding streets.
Lindsay, I think you had some data before as far as what the buildings were to the right of way. As I recall, Mendota is very close. It actually encroaches, the porches encroach into the right of way.
That's
And
correct.
I'm not gonna throw out specific numbers, but Tower House is set back pretty far. The Gerlays property is set back pretty far.
And that's why I was more curious.
On the
about
north
distance
side,
to the
the-
road rather than the right of way, right? Because I mean, we're moving the right of way essentially, so I'm curious. As you travel down Colorado, how far are the existing buildings to the right of way or to the roadway, which I can.
To the curb?
To the traveled roadway,
Well,
the
the-
lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no curb, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to understand how close the edge of the building is to where the cars are gonna be traveling for the context of the rest of the neighborhood.
So one thing that I think might help with this is just understanding, and I could pull up a map here that just shows basically the widths of the right of way on Colorado.
Yep, that would be helpful.
So our sites are right here. Colorado Avenue, once you pass South Davis Street, is 80-foot right of way. And we actually had, the town had vacated a portion of the state highway along this portion in front of our site. So our section of right of way right in front of our site is actually 100 feet in width. And we just, you know, because of that, we have that extra room here. So while we're acquiring some right of way, you know, we've talked to the different town departments and public works, and they don't feel that this will impinge on any future improvement.
I think the figure ground study might actually go to John's question a little bit. If you look at the properties to the north, where they are relative to the lot line, relative to the edge of the travel way. And you can see on the, when you get close to Mendota, the travel way is actually probably closer. There's one parking space wide plus a sidewalk. So you can kind of see what those setbacks are. And then when you hit the historic district at Davis Street, then there's a little bit more uniformity and things.
I mean,
like
that was what I did, Lance, is I went down basically from the residential, measured from the distance from the corner of the house to
Mhm.
where the roadway is. And then I did it for Mendota and then I did it for Clark's. So I kind of have a sense of what those buildings are setback wise, even though there's no setback. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
Hark is definitely looking at that as well.
Mhm.
With their.
We did
condition-
receive a condition to look at the setback, correct?
Yeah,
Yes, we do.
So maybe, I guess, you know, to resolve my question is maybe when we get future packets, the PDFs can be sized to what the sheets are sized so that the measuring tool works.
And I can address that comment. So that's my fault. I reduced these PDFs to fit the packet. Normally the packet kind of gets a little unwieldy because we have these large PDFs and the smaller 8.5 by 11 narrative portions. So that's the reason you can't measure very well using the.
Read the notes.
So I'll take note of that and make sure that you have a scalable PDF to work from.
Yeah, I
Thanks, Ann.
wondered because we've never had this problem
Yeah.
before.
My fault.
yeah.
Peter,
I'm curious, I don't know if it's appropriate, but remind me, if the property line that's being revised, is it new to us? Have we seen this configuration? Is it very?
we have not.
I'm just curious because.
This is the same configuration that we shared with you in January.
Wait, well, is that correct? Because we had said to you, we want less right of way taken. You took off some right of way, then you put some right of way vacation back. So what does this does not reflect what we saw in January, I assume.
Hmm.
Is that correct?
It
This
does.
does,
It's the
this
same as.
does reflect what you, correct. We didn't have any conditions to reduce the right of way. I think it was more of a discussion of working with Hark on building setbacks.
Okay, so.
There was
when-
no actual condition to reduce right of way vacation. That wasn't something that we had talked about.
Okay, but in the staff memo. Wait a sec. Originally at the conceptual stage, I'm reading from the staff memo, the applicant was requesting 3,733 square feet right of way vacation. Is that what this reflects, your original request?
This is less than that. So right now we're looking at 2,861. So there's
Okay.
803 square feet on the Tower House site and the balance on the Canyonland site.
2,856, correct?
61 is what
Mhm.
she's close.
Oh, all right, close. to
2,861 square feet.
All right, and that's
is
what
the
this map,
total request.
that's what the map that we just had on the, up here reflects. Can you put that back up again?
Yep, that's what's on the preliminary plat. So that's the preliminary plat right here, showing in gray, the vacated right of way that's proposed is this area right here. And that didn't change from January.
Okay,
My question, it is different than what we saw in October.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. It was reduced from October quite a
And
bit.
I'd be, you know, somehow in January and now we never get to see the line of where it was in October and what it is now to evaluate the reduction. And, you know,
Oh, they've
that's
reduced
something
it
I
by
would
about-
really like to
Mark is
see.
keen on those kinds of things too.
Yeah. They've reduced it by about
Comparisons.
1,000 square feet according to their numbers. No, 3.7 to
Okay.
2.8,
And
but I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I would like.
Yeah,
I would
Lindsay,
think
is there a way to show the original vacation request? I mean, not, I mean,
Uh-huh.
we can continue with the meeting, but you
Yeah,
can.
and then maybe we'll come
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
this. Are there other questions for the applicant? Angela,
Do you have your list?
you go for, you first. go ahead.
Well, some of them relate to, I know, site design, which my understanding is Park will review this at their March meeting.
Yes.
And so they'll address some of our PUD considerations about substantial height and that kind of thing, right? As well as site concerns, like that have been brought up by letters.
Well, we should discuss any of that we want to discuss.
Right, okay. Snow storage was one of them.
Yeah,
Right-of-way vacation was one of them. Drainage in the neighborhood, maybe this is something that, Ron, you can address. I walk through there regularly on my way to Clark's. And the picture that was provided is certainly adequate, or excuse me, accurate. It's, you know, it's a mess. And so that compiles the question about snow storage, adequate snow storage. And I know these are site concerns, but when we draw these lines for easements and property, lot lines and whatnot, I'm concerned about what will happen to Tomboy Drive, which is a public right of way, I assume. Not a private drive, right?
Yes.
It's a public drive. It compounds the neighborhood impact situations that are occurring now. And so as from a public works standpoint, are we with this, with any approvals here, compounding the complexity of what can be remedied back there?
Well, what I can tell you, the town engineer has been very involved in the review of this application.
And what?
The town engineer has been very involved in the review of this application.
Okay, yeah.
And the applicant will have to work closely with the town engineer at the development stage, including final drainage plans, drainage study, final SIA, all of the public improvements, and all of the improvements on site as it relates to the drainage. So the best way to answer that is that it is being reviewed by the town engineer and will continue to be reviewed by the town engineer before development, before any permits are issued or any final approvals are granted.
let me
Okay.
try a follow-up question. What is the obligation of the applicant here to not make, I assume they have an obligation to not make the situation worse, is that correct?
Yes.
And do they have an obligation beyond that?
I'm sorry.
So do they have any obligation, since they're proposing this big development and it may make the situation worse, they have an obligation at least to remedy what's coming off that lot and possibly making the situation worse. So that much is right, correct?
Correct.
Do they also, sort of like when you do sometimes you have an obligation to pave the alley when you're doing a construction next to the alley, that's
Off-site
going beyond. Do they have an obligation beyond just controlling the water that's coming off their site? Maybe this is a legal
Adjacent
question.
right of-
Not called off-site improvements.
Yeah,
I-
adjacent right
There's
of
a,
improvement, whatever.
there's a whole litany of offsite improvements that we are having to do. As far as fixing a big hole in the street that's not caused by this development, yes, certainly we cannot make it worse. But our obligation in this situation is to pave half of the right of way. And I believe that hole resides in the half of the right of way that needs to be repaved. So certainly you can't just
Just raise it,
Right.
push it
pave
somewhere else.
that over.
Dig a deeper hole next to it.
Ideally, what happens is developments like this coordinate with Public Works and they accomplish much needed street improvements at the same time, doing the other half of the street, for example, so that the whole street gets redone. I do know that they're looking at a sewer line relocation in this area as well. But if the pole is on our half, then that's
It's your
this
problem. You have to fix it.
developer's issue.
All right, thank you.
Um,
If you'd like, I can go back to the question on the right-of-way vacation.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, just
So I've
before
got the,
this,
Uh,
before we leave this subject, what my question to Ron was about the subdivision itself. Is it, in your opinion, drawing the lot lines as they are? Because that's our decision today, with its current easements, is it adequate? Are there adequate remedies, I guess, for this project to take care of some of their obligations for offsite improvements and rectify some of the issues?
I think the lot layout, as you're considering tonight, will not prevent them from addressing these issues satisfactorily to ensure that there's no impacts offsite or additional impacts offsite.
Okay,
So the lot configuration as it's presented to you tonight would not prevent that from happening.
okay. And it will, in your opinion, you don't think, or the town engineer in terms of, because there are quite a few specific recommendations here that involve public works. Any approval will not compound or make that any more complex.
No, again, town engineer she's been very involved in this process of review and had some very constructive comments for the applicant to consider. And that will continue. I mean, prior to any final approvals, town engineer will review it.
All right, should we go back to Lindsay, who wants to show us the various right-of-way vacations? Did you hear me?
sure. Yep, I was just making sure that was, you were ready. So this is what we're proposing right now. In the blue here is the existing right-of-way. The red is the proposed property line. So this is our today proposal. And I'm gonna flip over to 10/26/23. And you can see it's a little bit harder to read on this one. I'll zoom in a little. The red is the proposed, and this gray line is the existing right-of-way. So you can see that it's quite a bit further offset from the road. And same here. This is the gray is the existing right-of-way, and the red was the proposed back in October. What we brought you in November was very similar to what we're showing you today, with some slight modifications.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
that was.
So that,
Yep, that's
Great.
exactly what we asked for. Other questions to the applicant? Kathy?
I guess I'm used to seeing open space or green space in the subdivision delineated a little bit at the subdivision time. Not the size of trees or, whatever, but I'm curious if there is any open space in this subdivision and in these new lots that is not the town right of way getting landscaped by this applicant.
No. It's parking.
so we weren't asked to provide a landscape plan with this submittal for subdivision. That was more with the PUD, what we showed you during the PUD process. And then again, we'll have to show revised landscaping with our HARC application. But I know you're not asking about so with this application, what we're showing is that we will be providing landscape within the right of way. And that was shown in the cost estimate as well, to re-landscape the right of way area. That
But
gets
there's no
disturbed.
dedicated open space, is that right, Lindsay?
In the new lots.
That's not
In the right of way, I understand that you're
That's
gonna.
not-
Great, but.
right.
Yeah, I can answer that. We're not
I-
proposing any public open space with this subdivision or PUD.
What about private open space for the people that live here, live there?
Yeah, let me go through that a little bit. The three tower house lots, they're small. I mean, right now, the existing lots are 2,700 square feet or 2,900 square feet. They're basically small lots. And so if you just build 3 units or 3 houses on those lots, you're not gonna have a lot of public open space anyway. In the site designs that we're working on to come up with a better design for Hark to review. There are spaces between the buildings that the residents can use. It'll be part of the Hark plan, but there is relief. It's also for architectural reasons. But we're not dedicating those as like public access or not like a public easement. On the Canyonlands lots, we're looking at ways to increase the amount of green space within the lot that was not shown on the earlier Hark drawings. I'm not going to say specifically what that looks like. We're working through that. We want that as well. It also helps with snow storage and just a lot of other, topics like that. So, but we, to be clear, we're not proposing any public open space like we have done in other subdivisions.
No, I understood that, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure there was gonna be some private open space. It seems like the plans are also top secret.
Oh, no, it's, they're being revised. You can look at the Hark plans, they're online, but those are changing. And no, this project is very urban, so there's not a lot of, green space within the projects themselves. If this, vacation was not being sought, there would be no subdivision on the Canyonlands lot. It would be just going to Hark with one large lot. So.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Yes, I'm sorry. Peter, I
Just
didn't
as
see
a
your hand.
general one, I saw in the packet several pages on with boring logs and all sorts of fun stuff. I am curious, as a executive summary recap, what is all that? Did we request that? Do we need to talk about any of that?
That's a geotechnical report.
Yeah,
that
it's
was required.
required. And the town's been, has different times where they've required that. Sometimes it'll be required at the time of building, design and permit. Sometimes it's required at PUD, sometimes it's required at subdivision. We produced it and showed this during the subdivision process. It doesn't really yield any facts of how we might configure lots or vacate lot lines and things like that, but it was a requirement, so we included it.
It was a requirement of the subdivision, so we attached it, and that's part of the reason I wanted to kind of make it a little less unwieldy and provide the PDFs in a little bit different format. But it's a lot of information. It's generally there just because that's a part of the application or required as a part of the application.
Did it raise any issues that we need to address? Ron?
Well, it determines groundwater
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of the review process.
and which sets the finished floor elevation.
Or the floodplain on that,
Right.
so.
Sorry, copy.
If I understood it right, this is not a geotechnical report for these lots. This is a regional
Mhm.
geotechnical report for 4 counties. And my concern is that we have soft soils around here, especially in this neighborhood, because this was wetlands not that long ago. And I think it would be, if I were the builder or if I was the developer, I'd want to know right now that I've got soft soils, so I'm gonna have a whole different
There's-
foundation design and possibly different uses,
Mhm.
eliminated or allocated instead of this, this is the kind of rocks we have in this greater,
Like,
Yeah.
There's 2 reports, Kathy. There's the soils test, which is the
Soil
county,
test.
the countywide, 4 counties. The geotech test has the boring locations and it gives the stratification of the soil. So
We have a
But
geotech analysis of the property that we
groundwater.
did when we bought the property. We also were looking at the groundwater. We have a groundwater specialist look at the site as well. But those aren't relevant to this specific application because we're going to redo those when we go to building, actually designing the building, and that'll determine the foundation type and how you work with these soil conditions. The soils are very bad, like they are in this part of town, as some of you know, because you've done projects in this part of town. And the groundwater is below the lowest grade of the property. I'm guessing like 6 feet, 5 to 6 feet, depending on the season. And the town we are in groundwater zone. So if we do anything in the groundwater, that requires a groundwater permit. But our design right now is looking at not going into the groundwater with any permanent foundation elements, except for columns or piers or something like that.
Other
Okay.
que-
And I guess my comment more than a question is, it seems irrelevant that we got the 17 pages of the regional 4-county plan in our packet. So it's a waste of everybody's.
Well, no good deed, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people just try to put in filler in their application, like oh my gosh, it was 300 pages long. It's gotta be great. And I don't appreciate.
We were not trying to fill, we were just trying to meet that.
Provide all the information.
Yeah. But there is going to be, as you know, there will be very specific bore testing on the site about where this, where the buildings go. We don't do bore testing until we know where the building footprints are.
Yes, Angela, you have more?
Well, I was going to ask about one of the other concerns that our public letter had, which was comparison of this project to the previous project. It's been brought up by public
Yeah,
several times.
But go ahead.
I don't know that we need to address it, but because that's not really our concern.
No. There was a previous
So
project.
I just wanted to go through that, address those, or have the applicant or the staff address it if
There was a
necessary,
previous
and I don't think it is.
Necessary.
Any owner can propose what they want to
Right.
build. They're not bound by a previous approval.
But they did make some other points, which I think we've addressed. about the
Other point.
Residents, the drainage and the snow storage. I
Right.
thought those were good points.
I want to say, I appreciate that they've systematically gone through, they have their point of view, and they've made whatever their point of view very clear,
Right.
unlike some letters that we get. But,
No, I appreciate the comments and we tried to talk about them a bit with the applicants. I have, one question, and this is actually technically, I don't think it has anything to do with the matter immediately before us, but we did get a letter from, another member of the public, Matthew Hintermeister. And I just wanted the applicant and Ron to address it if they want to, because he made this letter is now on the record. And he made some
Mhm.
comments about what had happened last time, and if you want to address it, please go ahead.
I would defer to Ron about, to confirm that any building footprint shown in a PUD are for illustrative purposes only, that the building plans go to HARC. On the second point about that there was a HARC direction for a 25 setback. Richard, we'll provide you a copy of the minutes from that
Thank
meeting.
you. That's received.
And those are draft minutes. I think they were adopted
Say.
last night.
I'm not gonna read
There's,
them all.
oh, no, I highlighted the conditions. There's
Okay.
several conditions, but there's no condition that says, or about moving the westernmost proposed Kanglands building back by 25 feet.
Thank you, Lance. All right,
Yes,
So
but
this is
there's-
on the record too.
Yep.
Along with Mr. Hintermeyer's letter. I just wanted procedurally give you a chance to
Mhm.
address that.
And I can respond concerning the portrayal. I did review the meeting, trying to find the concern that Mr. Or that Matt identified. And I was not able to find that. So I did ask him to help me determine where that is in the meeting, where that discrepancy, I guess is the best way to describe it, occurred, but I did not hear back from him. There was no intention of dismissing what he was trying to say. I was just trying to understand where exactly that was in the meeting. At this point, I haven't been told where that
Sounds
is.
like he was. drawing.
That's fine. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Lance. That's great. Are there other comments, questions for the applicant, or are we moving into discussion?
Well, I was gonna go back to the finding.
Oh, wait, I do right. Are there questions for the applicants?
The finding number 2 of will work with. Maybe it's just semantics. It just read like a condition as opposed to.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this
finding?
earlier. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we should have that as a condition as well, or maybe it's more appropriate. Do you have any, Ron, you said you didn't have any objection to that?
No, not at all.
Okay, and then the other one was about, just clarifying that if the parking, parallel parking in front of this project was dedicated parking to the project, and then how is that actually gonna work?
Well, they have an attachment, they have a, permanent easement created. Where is
Right.
it? It's down here.
And from a practical standpoint, that was my question. If we can put it on the ground, but how will people know? Are we signing it, I assume? Assigning unit numbers to those, spaces. I know there are some in front of Mendota, but I don't know if that's a
So
same situation.
The
or not.
permit system for Boomerang.
Pardon me?
It's a permit system for the Boomerang Village or Lodge, one of the
Yeah.
Boomerangs.
So we
it's a
have done
zone-
something like this before?
Mhm.
A zone situation where you get a permit.
Like instead of the W, those ones say BB. on the
Yeah,
side.
right.
Yeah.
I just wanted, that was a follow through to, yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, Angela, just for clarity too, this is in addition to the condition number 9 as proposed in the packet of covenants shall be recorded with plat to ensure use of the offsite parking easements for the benefit of the respective condominium owners.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you, in addition to that, you're talking signage
Yeah,
as well. Okay, just one.
yeah,
Thank
and
you.
just,
And
just
signage-
follow
signage
through
or
to
put- and or-
actually being able to implement that there's a precedent that,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
um,
signage. was
not something that,
required.
we just have come up with.
Signage was a condition of the PUD.
Yes,
Yes.
Correct.
again, for the record, I think those are sort of important points to make sure.
Have a question, circling back, Lindsay, John here asked earlier, I know this is not a review of the building or building footprints, but relative to other adjacent buildings, are you able at this point to give us any comparative distances from the edge of traveled way, the edge of the street minus a curb to buildings here?
I can't give you, I don't have those distances exactly right now, and we're still working through them, but that will be brought to HARC in March.
Also, Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, the parking aisle and the curbing and the sidewalks are all reflecting a 4-foot shifting to the south. That
That is correct.
Public Works recommended. So that alignment will facilitate having a center lane for snow storage or for turning perhaps into the market. And I think the plan is, but Public Works will be developing this, is to have a center lane that goes basically from Clark's to Davis, which would tie in with a roundabout or turning lanes and things like
And
that.
tie in with the way the rest of.
That's correct.
Colorado
That's
Avenue is striped.
So
the
all of our
alignment as,
zones shifted.
yeah, this is all shown with the sidewalk shifting south towards our site.
If for some reason that doesn't go forward, then the sidewalks and everything shifts north 4 feet to match up with the existing travel way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Right now, we have a center lane all through Colorado Avenue.
A large part of Colorado.
Yeah, from Davis
Mhm.
on east.
And our ramping, I mean, this is getting technical, but our ramping that we're working for the HARC application acknowledges that the road is widening, which shortens our distance, which affects the ramp angle and things like that. So we're planning for that to happen. The public improvements on this project will probably go in later, at the later stages. So hopefully by that time, the town and Public Works will have decided to do the widening, and then we'll be putting in these improvements along that alignment. So if they don't do that, then we can just go back and just do it the way it currently is in front of Clark's.
Other questions?
I'm still stuck on snow storage. Sounds like it's a work in progress. The buildings are being designed. Is there anything you can show us that reflects the buildings we have seen or that you can show us? Is this just going to be a Public Works determined issue down the line? Is this important for what we're looking at?
Are you talking about snow storage for Colorado Avenue?
No, your
No.
project, your driveway, your
With-
parking.
Within the property, where's the
So
snow?
on Canyonlands, Canyonlands Northwest, we're still proposing a minimum of 50% of our parking to be covered. So that will help with snow storage quite a bit. On the plans that we submitted with the PUD, we had some landscape areas back here, and those areas are landscaped to accommodate snow storage as well. So we do have some snow storage planned for this area here and as well right here. And that was in the PUD plans that we submitted.
And what
Reviewed with
about
you
the
last
tower house?
month.
What about the tower house side?
So Tower House, we are working through that still. That's tight. We have some space right along. So we have those parking spaces and there are some small areas of landscape that we will be able to push that parking into. So the Tower House, we also are proposing to have some covered parking as well. So that will alleviate some of the snow storage issues. And then the surface parking, as you recall, was for the Tower House condos. So in between some of these, let me show you on this subdivision plat. The parking, these are kind of where the parking spaces would be. So we have some areas in between where we would do snow storage and maybe a little bit up front. But like I said, that's something that's going to be improved with our next round to HARC.
So I assume that any developer has an obligation not to create a nuisance to the property next to them. And
Yes.
so you do have an obligation to keep your snow off of the property to your, where is that?
So
West,
East.
Yeah.
east or
east.
west, yeah.
And as well as, I guess, off the public roadway and the sidewalk. We can't really deal with that right here, but we assume that you're going to comply with that obligation because otherwise that would be a big problem. Yes.
I just want to clarify, you need snow storage, not just for your parking and driveways to be cleared and have snow. You need snow storage for the snow that needs to be removed from your roof. Most roofs in this town do not have snow that sits on them from the beginning of winter until the 1st of May or June. You need to take that snow off or it's going to avalanche off or something, but you've got to provide that it stays on your property and does not create a hazard. And since you're going in between a lot of existing buildings, that's is not an easy thing to do.
So
That's why we're really focused on it.
I'm just
And
curious,
glad
what's a
it's been
similar
brought up.
project that you're familiar with that has similar kind of management and how this is gonna, because this is, I'm kind of like, I don't know what you do first. How do you, and it's
Yeah.
a foot.
Well, there is, and you might be kind of familiar with this, Owl Meadows.
Yeah.
Right, and then there's,
That's all snow melt.
right, that's all snow melted, that's why there's no snow storage on
Yeah.
that, right? And Mendota does not have much of a snow management problem because the
Underneath.
interior walkway is heated, right? Thinking of other projects that the Entrada project, we have snow storage areas. It's a 5-foot strip that's along the north side of the drive lane. Longwell, we have the snow storage
Yep.
at the end.
Yep, the-
I believe that we will have adequate snow storage on the site. You guys want to see where exactly it is. A lot of that's dependent upon where the parking actually ultimately ends up and the buildings end up. But I'm wondering if there's a condition that you can place on this that gives you adequate comfort that there'll be adequate snow storage on the site. Because we don't really know what our snow storage needs are until we actually know where our hardscape is and what softscape and so forth. Kathy's right on the Tower House site that that's, when you're doing high site coverages on small lots, everything's a side yard, and things like that. So, but it does work in other parts of town. I'm just trying to think of a West Pacific campus, but
Well, one of my concerns is, right now I love walking on heated sidewalks in the middle of the winter. I know I'm not gonna fall over. It's great. But I'm thinking as we go forward with our climate action plan goals, we might be turning off heated outdoor spaces because trying to heat the great outdoors is not, carbon neutral by any means. So I'm very concerned that new construction comes in with adequate snow
Yeah.
storage in case they're not heating the great outdoors. And oftentimes an affordable housing project's not gonna have a budget to heat the great outdoors as a means to do their snow removal.
or pay to haul it off.
Right.
You want to basically keep it on site.
or haul it off, yeah. that's
All right, so
expensive too.
let's think of a condition. We have a bunch of them here. We can add a condition number. There's nothing about snow storage. We can definitely add a condition number 17.
Well, number 2 of findings is gonna be number 17 now.
Yes, that's right.
So we're gonna working on snow storage will be number 18.
Actually 16 and 17.
No,
No,
there is a
There's the
16.
16 on page 2. This way, the easement shall be drafted for all public utilities is 16.
Yeah, there.
And
Right, so
then-
now we have 17, which is previously finding number 2, and 18, which is something to the effect that snow storage shows adequate snow storage for snow generated on the property shall be provided on the property.
Or
Yeah, that's,
Does that capture it?
I mean, there always are gonna be situations where you're hauling snow. I was watching somebody clear a roof just above town hall here.
Mhm.
The snow was landing right in the alley, but they were scooping it up and hauling it off. They weren't just pushing it somewhere else in the right of way. At least when I was there.
They move a lot of stuff around, so.
And there've been some projects approved without, years and years ago, without adequate snow storage that we're now still dealing with.
Mhm.
In the accommodations to area specific.
This is a particularly challenging parking lot to get in and out of with 28 residents and on a snow day. I'm trying to remove snow and I'm just like, this is
And the
this is a trick.
Yeah,
Don't
it's,
park down there if it's gonna snow,
Or plan to walk.
we are
or don't plan to. use your
working
car.
to
Yeah.
in a redesign to cover even more of the parking. Because we realize that that's a good thing to do for the residents and there's a lot of other
Some
reasons. it
solar
helps.
panels on that too, maybe?
Well, let me ask, can I, okay, I want to go back to something which which Lindsay touched on, which is the how you get from your condo or apartment to your parking place. So there are 2 easements shown on the map, correct?
Yeah, Lindsay,
Just
if
if we
you
can go
can
back to the-
share.
Just the overall map with little pretty green spots. There we go. That one is good. So it looks like there are 2
Yeah, are
easements,
you-
right? One for each each plot of land here.
What we're committing to, and I think Ron encapsulated this in the condition, is that from the blue parking areas, there will be an easement going to north through the project that does not use the right of way on the, or the sidewalk on the east side of the property. What we're saying is we don't know exactly where that will be because we're looking at breaking up that mass and scale of that building in the back. And so,
That's on the Tower House lot.
yes, on the
Yeah.
top.
And on the other side,
We have the
Yeah,
pedestrian
okay.
easement through the property.
then, and you've already decided where that will be and it's going there.
That's the most logical place. It connects to the south, goes up to Colorado Avenue, is crosses the driveway in a flat area. It doesn't cross the driveway where the driveway is steep. And then I believe the final design will have, some of that is actually covered. Open, but covered.
And what about the ADA spaces? Where are those and how do you get to them in an ADA manner?
It's my understanding right now that the ADA spaces have been identified, Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, on Colorado Avenue. And then all the sidewalks and the ground floor units go right to those units because it's very proximate to those units.
They'll be flat. Okay.
Yeah, but.
Yeah,
if
and
you-
there's a ramp up to the
Yeah.
Canyonlands East building to accommodate circulation for ADA to that building.
Yeah, but there's a lot of code issues that go into that, so, to be determined, but we do have to comply with all the applicable codes on
Did you,
providing the spaces.
in the Tower House one, Lance, that access, did you say that's a condition or is that just something that applicants committed to?
We have committed to it in the application that will provide that, but I believe Ron buttoned that up with a condition.
Yeah, it's a condition of the PUD as well as the subdivision.
All right. Are there other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there public comment? Piper.
People need to raise their hands digitally if we've got.
All
quite a
right,
few
please
members
use
of
the
public.
raise your hand function if you would like to comment, members of the public.
We have one, Sandy Gorley.
Oh, great. Please go ahead.
I've asked him to unmute. Oh, maybe he lowered his hand.
Okay.
Asked him to unmute. I've asked him to unmute, and he's not unmuting. Yes, none.
All right. Seeing no public comment, we will proceed to discussion.
Well, he's made a face on the thing now. Maybe he's trying to unmute. I don't know.
I've unmuted now.
There you
All
go.
right, well, we'll have public comment.
I'm so sorry. I'll make it fast. Commission Chair, Commission, thank you for your consideration all the way through this process. We understand these are very complex understandings, and we greatly respect your role and your discipline and your knowledge in terms of considering all the public comments and all the issues that relate to these projects. I also want to appreciate the applicant and staff and town staff for their effort to continue to address and make this project work for the neighbors, all the neighbors. I have just one brief comment with regard to snow storage. And I mean, this one is a little self-interested. We do sort of feel like we're a target here, having the benefit of having some open space in between these two projects that are very dense and crammed onto their sites. We already, as Lance knows, have had some concern about the town piling snow on our property from Canyonlands over several years, or the town's contractors doing it in the most recent year. And so we appreciate to the extent that it's within the bounds of the commission's responsibility that you try and assist the applicant to really make meaningful measures to accommodate this aspect of their proposed project. So we thank you for your consideration of our comments, and we look forward to this process continuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment, Piper?
I see none.
All right, we proceed to discussion. Well, who wants to kick this off?
It's always really hard to do a subdivision. I mean, the PUD that we had didn't have super specific plans, and they're changing as they go through hard. And we have to, it's much easier when you have very precise plans for your PUD and it matches the subdivision and all these things like snow storage. Or another concern of mine, since we approved the PUD, is that the parking space sizes after they're built are legal and functional parking places, not something that'll look great on paper and then we put in all the engineering and the posts and everything, and you have parking spaces the Subaru can't fit in and open its doors. We're not talking an F-250, we're talking a Subaru won't fit. So, I think this is really, really difficult. But, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, so it seems like it's our turn to make the next move rather than wait for HARC to approve plans.
Other thoughts, comments?
I think it's hard. I know we're talking about the subdivision, but I feel like the right of way is really the nuts and bolts of the conversation of what we're discussing tonight. In terms of how close the building can be and what's gonna look like when you come into town. And so, I really wish there would have been a little bit more information on what those distances look like I had mentioned before, but I don't think it's too problematic to not get there for me personally. Just given kind of where we're at and what we've discussed. I feel the same about snow storage. I'm concerned about the neighbors and the roof shedding, given how close that existing building is next to it. I noticed on the comments, they included a roof plan that I assume was from a previous meeting, and they did show snow fencing, which would keep the snow from avalanching off, but it doesn't necessarily prevent.
The roof barriers for snow, is that? what
Yeah,
you're-
the snow fences. But you know, that doesn't necessarily prevent large icicles and other things from coming down. So, you know, I'm just really kind of keyed in, like Kathy, on the snow storage, where snow is going to be, how's the roof going to be designed? Is it designed to hold the snow? Is it designed to shed the snow? Is there a drip edge? You know, all those things I think are going to really impact, especially that neighboring property. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to hear the other commissioners' comments.
I think there's a good deal. We're sort of operating on faith with staff who are engaged in reading log boring reports. And that's pretty heavily my understanding here. That this is in motion and it's not entirely sorted out, and that's not entirely inappropriate, but there's questions and concerns and a number of adjacencies that are impacted, and so that's what it seems to be. I don't have a lot of direct memory of what this review of the subdivision, how to fit it cleanly and not let my mind wander to all of drip edges and the like, but that's, I'm looking for guidance from others as well.
Well, it seems to me that John is correct, that we have first a decision about the right of way, and or in a way that to me is involved in both the subdivision and the right of way vacation, because the subdivision includes replatting these lots so that they include a substantial, you know, however many thousand square feet they said of the right of way. And that's a big decision. You know, when this project first came up, I would say I always have concerns about giving up a right of way because it is public land that can be used for a public purpose in the future, and you're foreclosing your options. And in this case, we're giving space that can be used for snow storage, public parking, other improvements to the road work, the road that may be needed in the future to this project for their parking. I mean, that's what's happening here. Now, town council can override that anyway, but we should decide what we think. So to me, the right of way kind of drives, if we are willing to let them put their parking in the right of way, then we can, then it seems like the other things are things that, as Peter said, will be kind of necessity worked out as they go along with the specific design. And we've already done in our PUD application, in our PUD approval, we already gave Hark, I would say, a little support in saying that we really wanted to see some of that exceeding 35 feet come down, a substantial amount come down. And so I think that was somewhat supportive of Hark to the extent that we can be.
I don't think the big deal is that we're giving parking in the right of way. We're just taking parking places and dedicating them to specific units, and that can be undone with a change of signs and some town council actions. But the buildings are going to go, when we redraw the lot lines to include what is currently right of way, there's probably going to be buildings in what is currently right of way. That's the bigger give that we're giving.
I'm not sure that's true. That's a good question.
So yeah, I mean, like if you look at this, I'm looking at the landscaping sheet, it's like sheet LS 100 or
Yeah.
something.
Right here.
And you can see the existing right of way in bold, and you can see the building that's in within it. So I mean,
You're right.
Well, point of clarification, the one building that Hark has approved is in the right of way. Some, I don't recall the amount of feet, but it is in the right of way. Now that's contingent upon P and Z approving subdivisions, PUDs, all that. So it's not, we can't go build that, but they reviewed it. They felt that that was an appropriate siting of the building and approved it. But it is conditional upon your approval.
I mean, I look at those other examples that were shown
Mhm.
both last meeting and this meeting, and you know, my feeling is that it's not an out of this world ask, right? We've seen it before, they've approved it before, there's been bigger ask in the past. I think the question, and really it goes back to my question that I asked the applicant is what is the view, how is that impacting, right? The view as you come into town? I know we're not talking about mass and scale, but I think at the end of the day, the right of way question is what drives the HARC approval and drives the overall design of the building. So we're trying to kind of balance between talking about mass and scale and design and talking about the right of way when they both are so interlinked or intertwined. Correct.
So I do have these identified, so if anybody, I have one for the Tower House as well, but let's just to clarify, when you're saying Public Works wants another 4 feet, is it coming out of this? What proposal?
Public Works asked us when we prepared the subdivision improvements to show them shifted 4 feet to the south. So our drawings show that 4-foot shift.
Not these, but
I don't know what,
this is from this is from the PUD we reviewed last time.
Lindsay, did the PUD plan show that shift?
There's one sheet that shows it. Let me find it.
Yeah,
Yes,
because it's the same as the plans that we showed tonight, was the same with what we submitted for the PUD, so it all included the shift.
As we establish new property lines is the genesis of my discussion here. One of the things we talked about that was important for this PUD is to acknowledge the need for landscaping and screening, both for the public as they travel by these, much as Mendota has successfully, I think, done that, there is adequate space for that we are creating with when we do these lot changes. We are retaining the ability of that screening to exist. And so, that's why I asked the question. If it's another 4 feet eating out of this, what was originally shown, I would be very concerned.
4 feet forward from there?
No, they're shifting it to the south, right?
Yeah, you're moving it 4 feet back.
yeah, that shows that.
That
If,
shows-
if that's the, Lindsay confirmed that the PUD image that you guys reviewed, the
it
plans,
acknowledges the center line.
has the 4-foot shift.
Yeah. In terms of process here, we know it's been a little convoluted. The right-of-way dedication, as it's been explained, I think is
It's a
justified.
vacation, not a
Sorry,
dedication.
it is a vacation
Vacation,
of
yeah.
what we already have. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think makes sense as it's been explained. The difference between what CDOT right of way was and then the town plat changes as it goes by this property, just past this property. The continuation of the streetscape, essentially cross-section, is reinforced by, we haven't lost that. Public Works has said they've have sufficient area to accommodate what we know will be additional traffic from additional areas, say at Carhenge and beyond up here. So that satisfies my concern about taking some land like Wilkin Court and Gold Run needed to establish more units than in this case to accommodate the front end of these buildings, whether they end up being that massive. So I don't have a problem with the right of way vacation. The part about the large scale findings in motion, I think is pretty comprehensive. Carving out lots, etc. I think, unfortunately, is really tied to the design of the building. And we don't like the design of the buildings, but that's not our purview. And so, but we're still concerned about drawing.
I hope
Art
there is no
lines.
design of the buildings yet, really.
Right.
I mean, Hark is.
It's
besides
still,
working on-
yeah, about, 100 feet off the ground. Theoretically, because it hasn't been. So I think this list of 18, is that 18 now?
It's
18
18 now.
conditions is pretty extensive. We have to rely, I think, on our subdivision standards and some of the codes that we have. Our building codes as well. So, and you know, faith in heart that they've been on this pretty hard to try to get, you know, a decent fit, if you will, and that's not our purview necessarily. So I'm fine with what we're going to do.
Other
Moving forward,
comments?
What's proposed.
All right, well, I'm gonna. Kathy,
I
you
will
have
be
comment?
going to the heart meeting.
I'm just gonna start right here. I move to recommend the vacation of a portion of Colorado Avenue right of way at lot 3, block 1 Canyonland subdivisions and lots 31, 32, and 33 Bachman Village subdivision with the findings noted in the staff memo dated February 15th, 2024, and the following condition. The right-of-way vacation shall be subject to the approval of applicable final subdivision and final PUD documents. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on February 22nd, 2024, with the notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Second.
Angela seconds. Is there discussion of Kathy's motion? No, all in favor?
Yes.
That's unanimous. That motion passes.
It's not a hard one.
Now, all right, who wants to take its crack at this one?
I know.
Kathy, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Get
move to
this.
approve the large-scale subdivision located at Lot 3, Block 1, Canyonland subdivision, lots 31, 32, 33, Bachman Village subdivision to replat 4 fully platted lots into new lots known as Lot 3R Canyonland subdivision and lots 31RA, 31RB, 31RC, 31RD Bachman Village subdivision, with the findings 1 and 2 noted in the staff memo dated
1 and 3.
1 and 3, yeah, dated February 15th, 2024. And with conditions 1 to 16 as in the staff memo of February 15th, 2024. Condition 17 is finding number 2 from the staff memo of February 15th, 2024. And condition 18, there will be adequate snow storage to store all snow that falls onto any of these lots
On the property.
on the actual lot property.
Second.
All right, I second that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank
for your
you.
time. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody who worked on this.
And the HARC meeting is March 20th, I believe,
The next one, yeah.
right? So if anybody else wants to come with their long list.
Yeah, and to be clear on that meeting, all buildings will be discussed except for the one building that has received approval. But we encourage you to actually take interest in this because I think we're making great progress on addressing all
Great.
kinds of concerns, so.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Will somebody tell Charles and Todd that they should return? Thank you, Lance. Time to 7th inning stretch. So, all right. Let the record reflect that Todd and Charles are back for a second public hearing item. All right, this one is lots 5R through 9, block 20, ETA minor subdivision, and this was continued from our January meeting. Summary, consideration of a minor subdivision designated rear setback on the plat, an optional rear access within the 15-foot rear setback pursuant to Land Use Code Section 6-402C. Legal description lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, block 20, East Telluride addition to the town of Telluride. address 835, 845, and 855 East Columbia. And Lot 5R, Block 20, ETA, address TBD. Zone District Residential, owner Frank C. Winter, Jennifer R. Winter, and San Diego Properties C. Applicant Maura Trumbull, CCY Architects, staff member Ron.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application for a minor subdivision. It's located east of Columbine Street, north of Columbia, East Columbia, and south of East Pandora. The application is to remove a 15-foot rear setback that was identified with the subdivision that was approved originally in 1997, and then with a replat that was approved, or it continued to be shown on a replat that was approved in 2015. The area that's highlighted in yellow reflects the rear setback area that was identified on the plat. Typically, setbacks are not shown on plats. The setbacks are handled through the land use code. And the encumbrances that are related to the building footprints are associated with what's required by the building setbacks by zoning district. However, this was a little bit unique. This subdivision occurred back in 1997. And when the subdivision was being taken through, the owner of the property was actually the town of Telluride. Columbine Street was a portion of Columbine Street was being vacated. It sounds like a rerun, but it's a little bit different. Portion of Columbine Street was being vacated, and it affected the platted lots. Lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 were modified to reflect new lot line boundaries. Concern expressed by Hark and Planning and Zoning Commission at that time was that the access to this property should be from the rear within this 15-foot rear setback. And that was the purpose for placing that setback on the plat. When the plat was recorded, an agreement was also signed that reflected the intent of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Two options were made available through the agreement and through the plat. Future access, vehicular access, could either come from within the 15-foot rear setback to the rear, if unanimously agreed to by all of the property or all of the landowners, or vehicular access could be from the fronts of the property. The southwest corner of Lot 5, southeast corner of Lot 6, and southwest corner of Lot 7, southeast corner of Lot 8, and from Columbine for Lot 9. So to reflect or to show this in more or an illustration, the option A provided one point of access from Columbine. And all of the access to the properties would be within this 15-foot rear setback. The 15-foot rear setback was established for a potential easement for this future access. However, did not eliminate the option for access from the front, from Columbine or East Colorado or East Columbia. I'm sorry, I mislabeled that. Unfortunately, I mislabeled it on all the slides, so ignore that. From staff's viewpoint, let me go back. Our preference is always to minimize the points of access along the street frontages. However, this 15-foot rear setback did not guarantee that there would be access from the rear. It simply identified that as one of the options available. It did not eliminate the opportunity for the property owners to decide to use Columbine and Columbia as their point of access. As I mentioned, the 2015 Lot 5 and 6 were replatted. This occurred prior to ballot 300. They were replatted into a single lot, 5R. The 15-foot rear setback continued to be identified on that plat. The agreement that was established back in 1997 is still in effect. So one of the issues that I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission will need to determine in deciding whether to grant this application is the original intent of the Planning and Zoning Commission when it established this 15-foot rear setback. In the staff memo, I identified language that was included in one of the staff memos that P&Z considered. And specifically, it indicated the required rear yard setback by the commission is not objectionable and would would appear to meet neighborhood concerns about views and proximities. With the exception of this one memo that was in the packet for the Planning and Zoning Commission, there's no other mention of the views and proximities with the approval of the 15-foot rear yard. So I think based on input that you might receive during this public hearing, I think that's something that you should consider. If there are public that do remember when this occurred and what the original intent was, by insinuation from that memo, it's clear, or inference anyway, from that memo, it's clear that there was a concern of the view within that identified setback and the proximity. But again, it wasn't a part of the motion. It wasn't a part of the final approval. So our recommendation, and I have this in the staff memo, is that upon a determination that there is no consensus that the 15-foot rear setback is also for the purpose of preservation of views and for concerns of proximity, staff would support this application. However, if it's determined through the public hearing process that there was an intent to preserve views and to address the issues of buildings within that setback, then staff is not favorable to modifying this on the plat. I do have a motion in your packet and the basis for that motion. And with that, concludes presentation unless you have any questions.
Yes, Todd.
Yeah, and I don't remember which slide it is, Ron, but to the west of lot 5R now, to the west of that, there's a lot 4, and there's a landlocked lot
Right.
to the rear.
Mhm.
Do we have any information here about how that lot is to be accessed?
It's, I believe it,
From the west.
yeah, it's from the west. I mean, there's no landlock as far as, I mean, I think there's an existing easement, a driveway that is shared. But it's not,
Comes
it's
off
not
Columbia,
affected
comes
by
off
this.
Columbia, and it's kind of a turnaround for a cluster.
Yeah, it's not affected by this future access.
Well, that's, if I'm remembering, that's to the west of Green Bank's house, which is kind of a, that access is kind of a mess, and has been before, P&Z before. Not that it's part of this one, but
Green Banks is one further west,
yeah.
one other shared driveway.
But he's on lot well,
Yeah.
go back to the slide that.
I don't know that you have it in this presentation.
No.
The,
Right here it's shown.
the vicinity map that was part of the, first part of the
First page.
packet,
Mm-hmm.
it shows the context a lot better.
Yeah, let me go back.
It's not
There
part
we
of
are.
what you, there, it is.
Right there.
That one.
There it
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
So that's that lot there.
Yeah.
That lot, the cursor's on right now is the driveway parking lot, and then the one above right there is, I don't know why it doesn't show up, but it's a duplex.
Sorry, can't hear you.
There's actually.
Duplex.
There's a house there.
Duplex, yeah.
It's been developed.
So they must have access somehow.
Yes, we do.
It comes up through that parking.
Comes off Columbia, as does Green Banks.
That weird,
and
like,
most other.
dog leg shaped polygon, that's their.
Okay.
So I just have a question on,
This is a question for Ron.
yes.
Okay.
The, okay, so the current setback is for basically a driveway using potential.
That's part of the question. What is it for?
Well, and if we remove that setback, then they will be back to the land use code, the 15-foot setback. But is that, that's for the primary buildings and 5-foot setbacks for the accessory buildings?
Correct.
But in your staff report, you say that that's not absolute, or, I mean, it's, I think, I guess what I'm getting at is, it looks like the land use code says it's 15 foot or whatever the average is for the block.
Well, the rear setback.
Yes.
So it's 15, it's prescribed by the land use code, it's 15 foot for the primary, 5 feet for an accessory. If this goes away, then the land use code would dictate. If this doesn't go away and your determination is that this is to protect construction within that setback, in other words, an absolute 15-foot rear setback, then that would be preserved.
Then even accessory buildings couldn't be there.
Right. But I guess my question more is the land use code absolute in that it's the 15-foot rear setback, or is it that it's the average?
It says principal buildings 15 feet or the average setback of the block in which the parcel lies, unless modified by HARC.
As approved. Or as approved by.
Sorry, can you guys speak up? I can't hear you.
Sorry, the code says for minimum rear yard, principal buildings 15 feet or the average setback of the block in which the parcel lies unless modified by HARC. However, the setback shall not be less than 5 feet.
Should not, what?
Should not be less than 5 feet.
So the setback
Could be 5,
could be,
could be 20. But it's as approved by HARC, and the applicants get to make an application and HARC gets to say yay or nay.
And this block has buildings all over the place, so it's really hard to say what the average would be.
yeah, that's what I'm
Grade
kind of
is
getting
also-
at, is that we don't know what the
We don't know.
rear setback.
That language typically is more in reference to the fronts. And on historic blocks where you're being more deferential, this is, to your point, one of those.
Peter, can't,
Speak into your microphone, please.
Okay,
you can have a conversation, but we need to hear it too. Thanks.
sorry.
Are there other questions for Ron?
So I might clarify that if this rear setback goes away, then the land use code would apply, including the language that you just read, 15 or less, but a 5 foot for any accessory structure.
So they could put something back there.
Yes,
Approved by her.
yes.
I have a question. There was some discussion in your background about, thank you, about the presence of a cottonwood grove
Yes.
that might pertain to why there was a rear setback in order to preserve those potentially. Oh, it doesn't sound like the record's very very clear, but to keep what we would consider the frontage on Columbia as the backyards in order to preserve potentially.
Well, it's kind of complicated. There were 3 meetings when this went to the Planning and Zoning Commission in 1997, but it was in October, I believe. There was one meeting that was continued, and then the second meeting, when they approved it at the second meeting in 1997, there was actually a condition that would allow them to reduce the front setback if they chose to use the rear setback as their access. That condition didn't make it to
Didn't survive.
the third meeting that's in place right now. For the condition that was approved when it went in December of 1997.
How, Ron, let me follow up on Angela's question. How are the cottonwood trees related to this access easement, if at all?
Not really related. They're on the front of the property. That was a condition that was placed by one of the planning and zoning commissioners who's sitting here tonight. But it too wasn't included with the final condition that was approved in December.
All right, so there is no condition that they have to preserve the
No.
trees, they just happen to still be there.
So my follow-up to that is if they were to change to the front as the access off of Columbia, those trees might go away. There's nothing to keep them, nothing to preserve them in our subdivision standards
Well,
or
Depends. really.
there is a
It's-
tree standard, yeah, tree protection standard.
They're pretty big, I don't know if they're big enough.
So for
I don't
lots-
even know where they are, so.
Well, maybe
Lots eight
Ron
and
can show
nine.
us.
Lot 8 is the southeast corner of Lot 8, and Lot 9 is from Columbine. That's how the current language reads. So it would really depend on the location of those trees. And the
Have a
southeast
Google
corner of
picture of
Lot-
this lot?
I'm looking at it, it looks like they're on lot 7.
So
What
Lot
was that,
7,
John?
I'm sorry, I should speak into the mic. It looks like they're on lot 7, adjacent to.
On lot 7?
Lot 7 is southwest corner of Lot 7 would be the access.
I'm speaking to the rationale for the rear,
Well, I mean, I'm just,
but maybe Kathy can enlighten us.
We should let the applicant make their presentation and then public discussion, then we can have board discussion.
That's fine. Are there more questions for Ron? No. All right, let's go to the applicant.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Ron, thank you. I don't have any substantial presentation. Similar to Ron, this is a fairly, as you saw in your packet, a fairly limited amount of information that you're reviewing. I do, however, have the survey for the property pulled up, and I can show you the location of that Cottonwood Grove if that is helpful for you guys.
Sure.
Excellent. Okay. So I have the plat pulled up here. And as Ron said, I do hope this is somewhat of a straightforward discussion. Part of the confusion around this access agreement is there's not a real clear understanding between the plat and the language of the access agreement. If the property owners were to elect to not use the rear yard setback, if it could still be used for accessory structures per the land use code. So that's not really clear within the current language. And again, our goal here is really to turn these lots back to the underlying land use code, since they are traditional 50-foot and 25-foot lots. So really letting that land use code and the provisions in place for accessory structures, accessory height limits, and setbacks to dictate here, because there's already a consideration within those rules for view corridors and things like that.
We can't see anything, although it says you've initiated sharing. We don't see anything.
Yeah, you're.
Okay. Hopefully it is loading. Would you guys mind if I stopped my video, so in case it's sucking up a little bit too much
Yeah.
No, that's
internet?
fine. Thank you.
There.
Okay.
Helpful, thank you.
Still don't see the trees, but fine.
Yeah, let me pull that one up. So the trees are located Let me make sure I'll get my preview up. The trees are located kind of on the line between lot 8 and lot 7, right here. And it's a pretty large, substantial grove of trees. I do have a photo of it. They're an older set of cottonwoods, and there's no intent to remove those at this time. There's currently a pending application for development on lot 8 and lot 9, but there's no pending development considered on lot 5R or lot 7 at this time.
But the proposed access is in right where those trees are on lot 7, right? Ron?
There is no access proposed on lot 7. I think that there would there's no development proposed on lot 7 or considered at this time. There is absolutely a way to access off of Columbia and avoid those trees. Think of a 12-foot wide driveway, maybe being on the center to the west side of lot 7. And that would allow those trees to be preserved and really be an amenity at the front side of that lot and provide great shade, right? So there's definitely plenty of space within the width of that access. Should lot 7 ever be developed in the future, for there to be a driveway on the front, similar to the development pattern kind of throughout this neighborhood, particularly to the south, where the lots are a little bit more traditional, as you guys mentioned. To the west of here, there's a little bit of some unique arrangement of lots.
Yeah. Do we have other questions for the applicant?
Questions for Kathy?
I have a question for the applicant.
No, wait. Let's talk to the applicant first.
I have one.
Yes, John.
So I think you might have alluded to it, but I'm curious, is the kind of the genesis of this application so that you could potentially place a rear structure in that easement? Is that kind of what I heard you say?
Correct. The intention with the applications pending on lot 8 and lot 9, we're actually proposing accessing all of the development on both those lots from Columbine Street. I do have a very simple site plan diagram here.
The ambiguity.
So that would be a single driveway cut from Columbine. And there is an accessory detached garage structure proposed at the north side of the lot within that 15-foot setback, of course, adhering to the 5-foot setbacks at the north side of the lot or the back side of the lot for an accessory structure. And then on lot 8, there is a very small, about 8 foot above natural grade accessory structure proposed within that setback. And the secondary dwelling unit shown here is actually within the 15-foot setback, so would not be affected by this. So really what we're talking about is a detached garage and a really small structure at the back of lot 8.
Thanks. Have you heard anything from any neighbors about views or proximity?
I have not personally heard anything, nor were there any letters that I could find record of. I don't know if there's something I missed in the packet or that got submitted today. I'm not familiar with any concerns, and I know that both the owners of lots 7, 8, and 9, as well as the Winters who own lot 5R, are in full support of just cleaning up this disagreement and going back to the underlying land use code.
Do you have that in writing?
We do.
Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant? All right, well, there's some members of the public. Is there any public comment? Remember, use the raise your hand function.
We
Okay,
have Lexi Tootenham.
all right. Please unmute yourself.
Hey there. It's nice to see so many of you. I miss seeing all of you in my daily life. Hi, Peter. Hi, Charles, Helene, Kathy, and Angela, and Todd. So I am here to represent primarily my mother, who is the owner of the property at B5. So that's the weird triangle shaped property at the top of what you're probably seeing as your map there. My brother is actually there in person right now, John Tudnam. I don't know if this is the right time for him to distribute a letter that a few of us neighbors recently put together, or how that should happen, and we can also do it afterwards. But so a couple of things here is we hadn't had the opportunity to talk to Ms. Trumbull yet, but we would certainly like to. This is actually an issue that Pancho and I had discussed a number of years back, and I sort of wish that he had reached out to us prior to bringing this to this application, but we can have that discussion later. And I look forward to really continuing to work together as good neighbors. We have worked together as a few neighbors here to put together a letter, and I'd like to enter that into the record by reading it.
Okay.
So stated February 22nd, 2024, and we say, Dear Planning and Zoning Commissioners, as loaners of lots B4, B5, A5, and A7 of the East Telluride Addition, we are writing in opposition of the proposed elimination of the 15-foot setback along the rear of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20. The setback was established by the Planning and Zoning Commission in October 1997, when the commission approved the East Telluride Town Lot subdivision, and was in response to the commission and neighborhood comments regarding views and adjacency, in our view. The subdivision was proposed by the town of Telluride to reconfigure the 5 town-owned residential lots, lots 6 through 10, Block 20, and 15 feet of lot 5, Block 20, with 10 feet of a vacated portion of the Columbine Street right-of-way, so as to enable a trade for private inholdings within the town park. Specifically, the town sought to trade the newly created lots 6, 7, 8, and 9 to the Levens family for their inholding, and to sell the newly created lot 5 to the Winter family for cash. Prior to recording the final plat and conveying the lots to the Levens and Winters, the town requested, and P&Z approved at the time, an amendment to the subdivision clarifying that access to lots 5 through 9 could occur either through the rear yard by an access easement that generally falls within the 15-foot setback, or through the front yards, subject to certain conditions. In the amendment request to P&Z, the town manager confirmed the town's position that the required 15-foot setback, and you saw this in Ron's slide, set by the commission, is not objectionable and would appear to meet neighborhood concerns about views and proximities. It is important to note that this setback was established prior to either the Levens or the Winters acquisition of the respective properties from the town, and that all parties had full knowledge of the various restrictions placed on the subdivision. Actually, if you go back to the minutes from that meeting too, you'll find, well, unfortunately, it has been lost to the digital world, but there's a letter from Lance McDonald, there's a letter from my father. And while we don't know exactly what they had to say, we can kind of tell from what was discussed in that meeting. Back to the letter. It is also clear from the record that the 15-foot setback and vehicular access easement were established for distinct and independent reasons. Since its inception, there have been 2 development approvals within the subdivision, both of which complied with a 15-foot setback. The first was Hark for a shed in the rear portion of lot 5R, and the second was a vacation of the lot line between lots 5 and 6 in 2015 to create lot 5R prior to passage of Ordinance 300. The recorded replat for this lot line vacation is attached here too, and clearly maintains the 15-foot setback. As neighbors, we are supportive of the current owner's use and development of their property in conformance with applicable town codes, but we ask that such developments respect the existing 15-foot setback that was established at the time these lots were created. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. And it's signed from my family, Irene, Lexi, Susan, and John Tudnam, who are owners of lot B5. We've owned that lot since 1988, as well as Joanne, John, Peter, and Thomas Weissel, owners of lot B4, and John Dorley, Gabriella, Lance, Lily, and Zachary McDonald, who are owners of lot A5 and A7. Just in addition, briefly to that, I would just like to say, I do believe that there is an intent to maintain these guidelines around proximity and these guidelines around sight lines and view sheds that are referenced in that specific set of minutes. This is something that, for example, like we've always worked together as neighbors to figure out these things, right? Like when our house was built, when John Weissel's house was built, the Mortels went to Hark and figured out a way to maintain sight lines within that. And we believe that there are ways to do this within this current application as well. But we think that the 15-foot setback is actually really key to being able to do that effectively. As a kind of a side note, I actually also have a cottonwood grove at the corner of my garage. And if an accessory building was brought within 5 feet of that, I do believe it would affect the root structure. And I would have some concerns around that. So I'll pass it on to someone else now. I think John Weissel has his hand raised.
All right, thank you, Lexi. Should we hear from John Weissel? Please unmute yourself. And you can pass those out.
This is just a copy of the letter. I unfortunately don't have quite enough copies of all the attachments, so apologies. So if you want to just.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, and it's very glad I'm able to join this discussion. I'll just speak for a very brief moment. You know, I'm my family, we've owned the home at the southeast corner of the property for the last 23 years, and as everyone I think in this meeting would acknowledge, you know, open space and views are precious to everyone. That was, and so everyone's obviously, you know, thinking about that and subject to seeing what final, you know, plans look like. I read through all of the meeting minutes, the memorandum from the town manager, and looked at everything in this. And one of the things I'd like to highlight in the beginning of the presentation, there wasn't, you know, it was mentioned that the setback was done for vehicle access. The documentation doesn't really support that, as I read it. Now, you know, I may have missed something, but I think the intent was, the original intent was much more about preserving space, views, and so forth. The other thing is the nature of these lots has changed quite a bit as lots are now combined. So there are 4 lots in consideration, and lots 6 and 7 could ultimately be combined at some point. You know, there's a possibility. So there are fewer points of access. And as everyone knows, on the east end of town, you know, vehicle access by back of house, front of the house, it's quite a mixed bag depending upon the specifics. Not as clean as is in the historic district. So you know, so that's just my perspective on it, and look forward to you know, the commission to you know, making its you know, final determination on this.
Are there other public comment?
I see none.
All right, so we will now move to board discussion.
Can I respond to any of the public comments?
Yes, sure.
Okay. And it's really just, I mean, I welcome working with all of you, all of the neighbors listed on that, to, you know, find a great solution that respects views, but also, you know, allows, I think, appropriate development and density that is reflective of the town's, you know, underlying land use code, underlying intent in terms of the zoning that's in place here. And I do believe strongly that the town, having been through the HARC process many times on some very challenging projects, that there are a lot of methods and systems in place to manage view corridors, to manage mass and scale, to ensure that the design process is public, and that there is an opportunity for neighbors to be involved in that process. So I welcome that process. I think what we're asking for is just a simple clarification that while views are of a concern, there's also a, you know, really standard lot configuration here and a lot of precedent throughout the neighborhood that there is, you know, it's within the normal pattern of development for there to be principal structures and accessory structures. So that's really what we're looking to return to here, is a kind of simple solution that is supported by the land use code and by the methods in place.
Thank
That's
you. All right. Board discussion? So I think that given Ron's memo, let me just clarify, Ron, for clarification, does the letter submitted by the Tottenhams, the Weasels and the McDonalds. And the comments made today in public comment, being that you feel we should, your recommendation is don't approve.
Well, if there's a consensus of the Planning and Zoning Commission that has been determined through the public hearing process, then we would not support removing the 15-foot rear setback.
You mean if we agree that the neighbors are opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that there's a determination that was the decision at the time this setback was established, to preserve not only a potential access, but also views and proximity.
Of the neighborhood.
Okay, thanks. Kathy?
I'm trying to remember all the details from 25 years ago. This was not one of the most memorable projects we ever reviewed. I do remember wanting the trees to be preserved. I'm usually doing that. And I do think we were concerned about the neighborhood views. I mean, if you go back to the topo map, which Maura has, but I didn't see that in the stuff in my
No.
machine. Everything slopes up, so if you even built a small structure in the back, it's gonna stick up. It's not, you know, into the view plane and possibly of some of the adjacents. And this, you know, I don't even want to try to go into the whole Pandora subdivision story. Or my version of it, so I kind of feel that I still want the 15-foot setback, you know, or I want to have some compromise about the absolute height of anything in the back 15 feet so that their expectations of views can be met.
Well, this 15-foot setback was apparently part of a deal during which town did, among other things, give up some of the right of way to create a bigger lot and, you know, otherwise reconfigure. So it was, you know, a whole package. And, you know, now they want to come back as a part of the package, you know,
It's mostly new owners, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't, when you buy property, you should find out about the easements and be willing to live with them and not, you know, still upset about that didn't know about the easement. Dropped it a few months ago. That was a bad thing. Yeah.
Angela.
Yeah, I think the applicant makes the point that, well, it should be under the guidelines of what our land use code says, blah, 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 which does not acknowledge the right to use anywhere in town. So I think there was a provision, I mean, you know, they're tight lots and nobody's entitled to views under the land use code.
And that's a hard.
Yeah, that's a hard thing.
Park has some things about these.
They do. For the most part, though, total reliance on them is not so guaranteed. And it seems like this neighborhood, and I didn't get here as a property owner until 98, so I don't know anything about this, but on its face, it seems like the neighborhood was trying to establish some parameters for established residences. So I think that should be acknowledged.
Well, to me, it seems like they made a package deal and I feel uncomfortable taking out parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is all part of the land trade.
Yeah, it was part of a land trade and they
Town
gave up,
park.
town gave up the right of way, they gave up their holdings in the town park. And so on. And as part of that, I assume the Planning and Zoning Commission heard from the neighbors, something like what we've heard today. That they really want this building right up against their lot, especially given the somewhat odd. These are not, I mean, some of the arrangement of these lots is not like typical, and I can see where.
And there's
interior
some
lots-
topography involved too.
Yeah, right. Those interior lots have like some special problems. and they tried to put this in the deal. That's what it sounds like. So I don't know, what do other people think?
It's interesting chess, who goes first and the sequence. I just read the bit from 1997 from the town manager. December 1.
Yep.
Saying that for the sole benefit of 5R, access through the other lots east could be achieved. And it's like, well, that is sort of the nature though of the agreement. From the looks of it, it seems to be baked into the cake here. And I understand asking to not want to be encumbered by it, but it seems pretty well baked into the cake.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. John, did you have a comment?
I have similar thoughts to Peter. I think, you know, for me, when I look through the meeting minutes that were provided by the gentleman in the back, condition 3 kind of feels to me like a pressure relief valve where it says, you know, if you're gonna keep this easement, then you can reduce the setback in the front down to 5 feet through HARC. And so I think what they're saying is that, look, you know, we're taking some land in the back, but in return for this access from the back, you're getting additional space in the front for the building. So, you know, one way or another, you're gonna use one part. And I kind of like Kathy's point that when you're going up the hill, any rear buildings are gonna sit higher naturally than the rest of the buildings. And I kind of feel like it should be more towards the front, which is what it seems like was approved as part of these minutes.
Kathy, by the way, I note that,
Yeah.
you came in later.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what, which may have affected your memory.
Yeah.
Charles, you have a comment?
I mean, I think, the easement is there and I think the existing owners of lots, whatever, 7, 8, 9, knew the easement was there, but I think, but also the neighbors knew the easement was there and, maybe they didn't buy the property knowing that was, or they may have bought the property knowing that their views were protected. And I think it would be wrong to remove that easement, with neighbors who are objecting to it.
Well, we know that,
If you want to reopen public comment, but Gabby McDonald's hand is raised.
oh, she's a neighbor, we should, is everybody stay with that?
A5.
All right, let's hear from Gabby. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to say quickly that I'm in full support of everything that has been said in opposition of vacating the easement, and that I agree with everything that was written in the letter that Lexi read. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. We do, Charles, to your point, I think Lexi mentioned that her father and some one other landowner actually were part of this process and submitted letters, so it's in the.
Yeah.
That was
It was,
it was
yes,
part of their expectation when this was enacted.
yes.
So other thoughts, Todd?
Yeah, I don't have anything different in opinion. I think we're being asked to try to second guess what went on in 97. And we don't have the kinds of conditions that we do today, which is one of the reasons why these things come up. And ownership changes and will continue to change. It's sort of the revolving door theory. And there is no land use code that protects view corridors. HARC has some purview over trying to do that with densities and heights and things, but sort of the conventional wisdom is if you want to see through a lot, you buy it, then it's yours. And that wasn't the case. It was part of the trading for the inholdings in the town park and everything else that established it in the first place, as several people have said. The fact that they didn't nail it down with verbiage that is, well, that we use today. Um, we can't fault them for that, but I read into that that's what they intended. And that they did have an out for moving things around, as John pointed out. Which if they try to do that today, then I'm sure our other board will give them some grief about being too close to Columbia, but that's not our issue. Our issue is, do we maintain this easement or not? And I'm in favor of retaining it.
Well, it sounds like that is the consensus. So Ally, we don't have to do anything, correct? All right. We have finished our consideration of this. Thank you, everybody. We are not going to make a motion to approve this, so the matter is done. We don't have to do anything about that. Okay. The board and staff discussion.
No.
I just, I always struggle when I'm reading my packets and I have the great big plans. And then we have the little by 11 pages. And, you know, at home, I'm sure many of us have bigger monitors. I certainly do. And I have a little monitor, but maybe there's a way to format our attachments so that all the big plans are scalable and they're all in one place. And then there's a different thing that you click on and you get all the 8x11s or the legal size stuff. So you can scale that at a size that's easy to read. And then you can move to the giant things and still be able to read the fine print or something. I
So
think.
we were kind of whispering about that, like maybe he could just give us the plan sets, full size separately from the packet materials.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we can definitely do.
There was a time, and probably it's not worth the paper and all the effort and the cost, when we got all the plans. We got all the 8x11s or 8x14s.
11x17,
Whatever.
yeah.
But we got all the other stuff in paper form so that we could see it, but now most people can see it at home. There's just gotta be a better way to format it, that we can get it.
We need to get our own software, correct? Or like Bluebeam or whatever we're gonna view these things through. The town can't provide that, like, correct, anybody?
Well, staff is getting Bluebeam. I'm not sure. but we could
Nobody's
probably-
offered it to me.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, just there's a way.
If it's an appendix, it can be sized.
Yeah, we can keep it at the original size that it was submitted, which in this case was 34 or 25 by 36, I think.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll do that in the future. This was such a large packet that we had a little amount of time. And you might notice you got the packet 6:30 Thursday night or something like that.
No, I thought you did very well, all things considered. I mean, just period, all things considered. And
A couple stutters, but that was.
and then I would like to try to get rid of the filler that sometimes, I mean, it's fine. We've already scaled down over the last 10 years, a lot of what we get. I mean, we could come over here and see it or something, but just, the regional whatchamajigger plan, I was just like, the boring stuff was almost interesting, but but I like that kind of stuff, but I was like, I don't really care about what the stuff is, the rocks are in Uray County, but I'm trying to worry about project in Main Street, whatever. So, I mean,
Executive summaries are helpful.
yeah, and you weren't here the night that Tom Kennedy left. He had to go do something. So he had his applicant and we got to him faster than he thought. So he had the applicant start to tell the entire history of the company that had just bought the hotel Telluride. And this was about 9 o'clock at night. We'd had a really long meeting and I'm just like, no, we don't want to hear one word about your company's history. That's not part of our,
Here, we'll just take a break.
We'll just take, exactly. So I've
We'll continue if you go,
Yeah.
if you continue.
Yeah, that was, so, we need to just try to not have filler stuff, I guess is what I'm saying.
Or even if it's like the floodplain or the soils report or the geotech, maybe it's just a link
It
to
could be a link. If
Yeah.
it's
instead of a
the
50
public
page.
record, it can be a link.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's what I was thinking. I kind of felt the same way I was going through. I was like, well, why am I reading the
Yeah.
bore results
Yeah.
for 5 boreholes?
Boring, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in that, but
Yeah.
most people.
So I just want to make sure that we are procedurally correct. Piper, are these, this is the minutes of Hark that Lance introduced, gave to me. It should be into the record.
Give those to me and I will
Okay.
add them as.
And you already have the package that Lexi submitted and the family, this. letter
The neighbors,
and attachment.
what, that gentleman?
Yes.
Yep, yep, he's
Have that
emailing it
already?
to me, but I'll happy to
Okay,
take this.
take the hard copy. You already have a copy of Matt Hintermeister's letter.
Ron, you emailed that to me, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. All right, we're good. All right, so the record is now complete with those additions. All right, it is now 8:05 and I adjourn this meeting by unanimous consent. Oh, thank you.
Hey.
Tim.